Good morning, everybody. Today we will briefly talk about the one of the commonest clinical case we come across in our practice. There is hemiplegia. Hemi means half, plegia means paralysis of the one side. So it is hemiplegia means paralysis of one half of the body, including lower half of the space, upper and lower extremities due to opposite-sided pyramidal lesions. And when the face is affected, hemiplegia is complete. When the face is not affected, hemiplegia is incomplete. So, uh, in incomplete hemiplegia, lesion is usually located below the level of the pons. Now, coming to the causes of the hemiplegia, we can divide it to acute and gradual onset. Acute onset, that acute means sudden. The commonest etiological factors of causes of acute onset is 1. Cerebral hemorrhage, 2. Cerebral thrombosis, 3. Cerebral embolism, then 4. Multiple sclerosis, and 5. Hypoglycemia, and 6. Middle meningeal hemorrhage. Then coming to the gradual onset of the commonest is cerebral tumor, and second commonest is relapses, including then chronic subdural hematoma, then following meningitis, following encephalitis, etc. Now coming to the common, etiological factor of hemiplegia, there is intracerebral hemorrhage, which it accounts for 12% total strokes cases in clinical practice. The commonest causes of intracerebral hemorrhage are hypertension with the cerebral atherosclerosis. So you have to check hypertension whenever you suspect a hemiplegia. Then traumatic causes. Then whooping cough. Okay. Then coming to the liver diseases, amyloid vasculopathy, then infarction hemorrhage, then blood dyscharosis, and some unknown causes, drug abuse like alcohol, cocaine, and angiomata. So the clinical features we come across is usually the age is 40 and above. It doesn't mean that lesser you won't get, but it's not common. So age 40 and above is the commonest. It is frequency or common among males compared to females. Usually preceded by the sudden headache with the vomiting sensation, and afterwards there's a loss of consciousness. So on examination, in early stage, pupils are unequal and react to light, but in later stages they are widely dilated and fixed. In Pontine hemorrhage, both pupils are pinpointed. Then coming to the light reflex. So light reflexes also present in the early stage, but later on it may be diminished. In the late stage of hemiplegia, pupils are dilated and fixed. Face is congested and swelling are present. Angle of the mouth is drooping on the view, and bounding pulse with the slow heart rate is present. Respiratory rate is also slow. The stertorous chain stroke breathing may be seen in intracerebral hemorrhage, and systolic hypertension may be very high. Then there may be involuntary evacuation of the urine and feces. Respiratory rate is slow. BP already told you, 200 mmHg systolic. Limbs are flaccid. Then abdominal reflexes are lost. Heart shows left ventricular enlargement, probably due to the persisting hypertension. What are the, now coming to the thing, now sometimes in clinical practice we come across difference, how to differentiate a cerebral hemorrhage from cerebral embolism. So clinically, cerebral hemorrhage is abrupt in onset, and patient loses on complaints of weakness, sudden weakness on the side. Whereas in case of embolism or a case of thrombosis, not embolism, so it is a gradual onset of paralysis, takes days together, or to be precise, the most abrupt onset is case of cerebral embolism, and again second is sudden onset is hemorrhage, and gradual onset is thrombosis. Now the question comes, how to suspect, is it a embolism or a hemorrhage? How do you decide it? See, it is easy to decide. In case of embolism, the patient have paralysis or paresis on one side, but he recovers without any treatment. Whereas if the etiology is cerebral hemorrhage, without any clinical intervention, patient won't recover, and if you do not treat, the condition of the patient deteriorates further. So it's a classical history or in case of hemorrhage. Whereas in case of thrombus, it is from hours to days, gradual on the development of the sets. That's how do you differentiate differentiate a hemorrhage, embolism, and thrombus clinically. Then coming to the sites of the hemorrhage or hemiplegia. The most commonest site is internal capsule, accounts for more than 50-60% of the cases, and next is maybe frontal lobe, or it may be corona radiata or thalamus or brainstem or cerebellum. Now coming to the so now coming to how to decide, the following signs will helpful in determining the site of hemiplegia. 1. Flattening of the nasolabial furrow. 1. Puffing out of the cheek with each breath. 3rd. Loss of coronary reflex. 4th. Spontaneous involuntary movement of the limbs. 5. Absence of movement of the limbs after painful stimuli. 6. More flaccidity and inertness in the lips. Then 7. Hemisensory loss. 8. Sluggish or brisk deep reflex. 9. Extensor or plantar response. So these are the tests you have to perform to decide the site of the hemiplegia. Now coming to the sites over there, then coming to the investigations are There is increased CSF shows increased pressure, color frank blood, protein level is raised, microscopic examination shows plenty of hematoma as it may precipitate medullary herniation. Then coming to urine is may show albumin and sugar due to cerebral lesion. Then blood examination shows TC, DC, HP percentage, platelet count, bleeding time and clotting time, prothrombin time, partial thromboplastin times. Then coming to liver function test, renal function test are to be done, which will give to clue to the hemorrhage. CT scan is particularly helpful for localized small hemorrhage, which does not bring blood to CSF. Or MRI also can be done. So management in cerebral hemorrhage requires ICU management. Patient is kept in intensive care and care unit in a rail cot with the head end slightly raised, facilitating venous return from the brain with the least movement of the body. All managements for the comatose patient should be carried out. Lumbar puncture may be done for diagnosis purpose because it is may be associated with hazards of tentorial or cerebellar herniation, and surgical removal of the clot can be done, and if there is a patient, maybe antibiotics may be sometimes useful to prevent secondary infection. Nutrition to be maintained by intravenous and gastric feeding or rice tube feeding. To reduce intracranial tension, glycerin, mannitol, fructose, etc. may be used. Physiotherapy can be considered in case where the patient gains consciousness with residual hemiplegia. The second, then coming to the second cerebrovascular thrombosis. The causes of cerebral thrombosis are cerebral atherosclerosis, syphilitic endarteries obliteranas and HIV infection, pressure effect of the tumor, dehydration, Berger's disease, collagen disease, and sickle cell anemia, use of oral contraceptives, polycythemia, and Takayasu syndrome. Then coming to the clinical features, onset is insidious, both sexes are equally involved. Convulsive seizures like onset, unconsciousness is rare. Then patient has got a hemianopia, hemianesthesia opposite to the side of lesion may be present. Residual hemiplegia is present. Features of classical hemiplegia. Coming to the higher functions, usually normal in right-handed person, where left-sided lesion may be produced aphasia due to involvement of Broca's area. Cranial supranuclear type of 7th and 12th nerve paralysis seen. Motor functions, power is lost, paralysis may be seen, tone is increased, coordination is normal, involuntary muscular movements may be usually absent, and sensory functions are unaffected. Reflexes, superficial reflexes, abdominal reflexes are lost in both in the side of the paralysis. Babinski sign is positive, and cremasteric reflexes are diminished or absent. Deep tendon reflexes, on the parallel side, ankle jerk, knee jerk, bicep jerk, tricep jerk, supinated jerks are exaggerated. Hoffen reflex may be present. Gait, a classical hemiplegic gait is seen. Patient stands with the adducted arm, flexes the elbow, wrist and small joint, and hands is crossed in front of the abdomen. So investigations of course, we have to do the total lipid profile. Cerebral angiography may be show stenosis. The third is CSS may show increased pressure. Then EEG may be done. CT scan useful. VDRL and ESR and ECG has to be performed. Management to reduce BP. 20% of mannitol IV over 20 to 30 minutes. Steroids are given. Direct freeze may be 20 mg in 2 to 3 minutes. Low molecular weight dextran can be given. Aspirin in small dose. High blood pressure and lipid level should be controlled. Coming to the cerebral embolism. The common cause of embolism is aneurysm aorta, atheroma of the internal carotid, vertebral and common carotid artery, infective endocarditis, myocardial infarction, infected emboli from lung, mitral stenosis, and paradoxical embolism, and light artery myoma. Clinical features, it's of course it's acute onset, and that is definitely followed by loss of consciousness. A patient may complain of headache with convulsive seizures, mostly right side hemiplegia, FEC is present. Again, management, 20% mannitol IV over 20 to 30 minutes, then intravenous steroids, diuretics like furosemide 20 mg IV 2 to 3 times, low molecular weight dextran, aspirin in small doses, high blood sugar and lipid levels should be controlled with respective agents. Nimodipine is used to reduce neurodeficit. Glutamate blockade drugs used to reduce size of the infarct, and stenosis of the internal carotid can be relieved by surgery. Antisyphilitic measures can be taken. And thank you very much.